It's noon in the Colosseum. You're standing on hot sand, your wrists bound, and 50,000 strangers are screaming for your blood. Not because they hate you. They don't even know your name. They're just bored. And in ancient Rome, a bored crowd was the most dangerous thing alive. You are about to die in one of the worst ways history ever invented. So let's start with the bad and work our way toward the nightmares. Number 10. The fall from the Tarpeian Rock. Let's ease into this. On the southern edge of the Capitoline Hill stood a cliff about 80 feet high, and for traitors and murderers in early Rome, it was the end of the road, literally. You were marched to the top in front of a crowd and thrown off. 80 feet doesn't always kill you cleanly, and that was the point. But the real punishment wasn't the fall. It was the meaning. To be flung from the Tarpeian Rock was to be declared worthless. Not even worth a proper execution. You weren't being killed. You were being thrown away, like the city was taking out the trash. And the trash happened to still be breathing on the way down. Number 9. Damnatio ad bestias, the beasts. You've heard of being thrown to the lions. The Romans had a name for it, condemnation to the beasts, and they made an entire morning's entertainment out of it. You're led onto the sand, unarmed, sometimes tied to a post, so you can't even run. Then they opened the gates, and the animals were starved for days beforehand, because a full lion is a lazy lion, and a lazy lion makes for a boring show. But it didn't stop there. The truly unlucky weren't killed quickly. Half-starved, half-trained animals would maul a limb and wander off, leaving you bleeding on the sand, while the crowd waited for the next one to take an interest. The Emperor Nero, according to the historian Tacitus, had Christians sewn into the fresh hides of animals so that hunting dogs would tear them apart as prey. The Romans weren't just killing people, they were art directing it, and the crowd loved it. Number 8. The Tullianum. Now we go quiet. Beneath the Roman Forum sat a chamber called the Tullianum, and calling it a prison is generous. It was a small stone room, accessible only through a hole in the ceiling, with no light and almost no air. You weren't sent here to serve a sentence. Rome didn't really do sentences. You were sent here to die, or to wait for it. Enemies of the state were lowered through that hole into the dark and left. Some were strangled once the public lost interest. Others were simply forgotten, starving in their own filth in a black stone box. The historian Sallust, a Roman writing for Romans who were not remotely squeamish, described the place as neglected, dark, and reeking. And here's the part that gets under your skin. A few feet of stone above your head, the greatest city in the world is trading, laughing, living, and in the dark, you can probably hear it. Number 7. Crucifixion. Everyone knows the image. Almost nobody knows the reality. Crucifixion wasn't designed to kill you. It was designed to take as long as humanly possible. Rome reserved it for slaves, pirates, and enemies of the state, and refined it over centuries into the slowest public death they could engineer. The position itself is what kills you. Hanging by your arms, your lungs can't exhale, so every single breath becomes a deliberate, agonizing push upward on the nails through your feet just to gasp. Then you sag back down, then you push up again, for hours, sometimes for days, fully conscious the entire time. But it didn't stop there. The Romans crucified people along public roads on purpose. After the slave revolt led by Spartacus was crushed, ancient sources say 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, the main road into Rome, and left there to rot. Imagine traveling toward the capital, and that is the view for the last stretch of your journey. Mile after mile. That wasn't punishment anymore. That was advertising. Number 6. Buried alive. The Vestal Virgins. This one was reserved almost entirely for women. specifically the Vestal Virgins, priestesses chosen as children who took a 30-year vow of chastity to keep Rome's sacred flame burning. Break that vow, and Rome had a problem. It was strictly forbidden to spill the blood of a Vestal. So they got creative. A convicted Vestal wasn't stabbed or strangled. She was carried through the city in a covered litter, in total silence, like a funeral for someone still breathing. Then she was lowered into a small underground chamber, holding a bed, a lamp, and a few days' worth of bread and water. And then they sealed it from above and buried it. No blood spilled. The goddess's honor technically intact. The bread and water weren't mercy. They were a loophole, so that technically Rome hadn't killed her. Starvation did that. In the dark. Alone. The Romans had invented a way to murder someone while keeping their hands ceremonially clean. Number 5. The Mines. Damnatio ad Metallo. This is the one nobody puts on a poster because there's no single dramatic moment. And that's exactly what makes it worse. On paper, condemnation to the mines wasn't even a death sentence. In reality, it was the longest one. You were sent to the imperial mines, or quarries, the gold mines of Egypt, the marble pits that built the monuments we still photograph today. You were branded, often chained, and then you worked underground, in heat and toxic dust, on almost no food, with no release date, because there was no sentence to finish. The sentence was, until you die. And you did. Slowly. From the air, from the collapses, from sheer exhaustion, over months or years. No execution to brace for, no final brave moment. Just the dark, and the work, and the certainty that the only way out was to stop breathing. Real quick, if your skin's still on and you're somehow enjoying this, subscribing genuinely keeps a new channel like this alive. That's it. Back to the horror. It gets worse from here. Number 4. The breaking wheel, used across the ancient and later Roman world. The wheel was less an execution and more a performance of slow destruction. You were tied, spread out, to a large wooden wheel. Then the executioner took an iron bar and methodically shattered every major bone in your body, one strike at a time, while you were fully awake. But it didn't stop there. And this is the detail that makes it monstrous. They didn't aim to kill you. Once your limbs were broken in multiple places, they would thread your shattered arms and legs through the spokes of the wheel, then hoist the whole thing upright on a pole, like a flag. And you stayed there, alive, for hours, sometimes days, exposed to the sun and the birds, your own body folded through the wheel in ways a body was never meant to fold. People would gather to watch how long you'd last. Some took bets. Number 3. Poena culae, the penalty of the sack. Latin for the penalty of the sack, and reserved for one specific crime: murdering your own father or a close blood relative. Rome considered this the most unnatural act imaginable, and built a punishment to match. First you were beaten, then you were sewn into a large leather sack. But you weren't alone in there. The accounts describe live animals added to the sack with you: a dog, a rooster, a snake, and a monkey. The sack was sewn shut with all of you inside, and thrown into a river or the sea. So your final moments are spent drowning, in the dark, inside a leather bag, while a panicking dog and a snake tear at you trying to escape the exact same fate. Historians still argue whether all 4 animals were always used, or whether that was a later flourish. But the sack and the drowning are well attested. Rome looked at a man who killed his father and decided that a normal execution simply wasn't poetic enough. Number 2. The Brazen Bull. A quick honesty note. The Brazen Bull's most famous story comes from the Greek world, from the tyrant of Acragas, but it echoed through Roman accounts and the Roman imagination for centuries, and it's too infamous to leave off. Here's why it haunted them. It was a hollow bronze bull, life-sized, with a door in the side. You were locked inside. Then a fire was lit underneath. The bronze heated slowly, and the person inside was roasted alive inside the metal. But it didn't stop there. The truly grotesque part was the engineering. The bull's head was fitted with a system of pipes designed so that the screams of the person cooking inside were converted into sounds like the bellowing of a real bull. The designer built it so that agony came out as music. According to the legend, the first person ever executed in it was the man who designed it. The tyrant tested it on its own inventor, which is the rare Roman-era story where you almost nod along. Number 1. The arena. The whole arena. You expected a single method here. That's the trick. The worst way to die in Rome wasn't one punishment. It was the machine. The noon executions, the elaborate mythological reenactments, where condemned prisoners were forced to actually die, playing the role of a burning hero or a devoured god, with real fire and real beasts as theater for a laughing audience eating lunch. This is the part that should sit with you. None of the people watching were monsters. They were ordinary. Bakers, mothers, shopkeepers, who brought snacks, saved good seats, and cheered as human beings were torn apart in front of them, and then went home and had a completely normal evening. The horror of Rome was never just the cruelty. It's that the cruelty was entertainment, attended by people exactly like you, who didn't think they were doing anything wrong at all. That's the thing about Rome. The marble's still standing. We put it on postcards. The people who were fed to it for fun aren't even a footnote. And the crowd that watched them die would look, from the outside, exactly like us.